Welcome to all students who are joining this live today with Shashikant Senthil sir, the IAS officer who resigned on the question of freedom of expression against the abrogation of Article 370. Thank you very much, sir, for joining today.
Thank you.
Before you take over the talk, I would like to leave a couple of questions for you to address as you start off, and so that students are also just joining in. We'll just take a minute so that I'll just leave those questions to you.
Yeah.
The reason why we wanted to have a conversation on this is we have seen in past 6 years how students have been the greater victims of the police atrocities, be it illegal arrest and so on. Even after the Modi government came back, it was the same. But during the whole lockdown period, we also saw the atrocities rise against workers and other section of population. In this context, we wanted to have this conversation, and I think with this frame, I would leave, and you can start your talk, and in between, will students whoever wants to ask any question, they can leave it in the comment section and we'll pick it up from there. And any questions that you want to send, please send it to us either in the comment section or in the message section. So we are starting the talk, sir. You take it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sai. Thanks a lot, and very nice to talk to all our student friends. So, my name is Sashikant Senthil. I'm a 2009 batch IAS officer who had resigned in the month of September last year when the Article 370 was abrogated. But I had a larger reason considering the central government's way of conducting the country. So I thought, we are going in a different path. And in fact, on the last general elections, I was the election officer and the DM of a district called Mangalore. So I had worked in 3 districts as DM. And so when I gave the results of the election, I was pretty upset that now we are going in a different path. So I decided to come out and sort of voice my opinions and also stand with all of you in this fight against this authoritarian system which has been deployed on this country for the last I should say from 2014 onwards. So that is my brief introduction. I had worked in the government for 10 years in various capacities. So when Sai requested that we discuss this topic, um, uh, what more relevant topic on this situation? In fact, it has now a global context also with the things happening in the US. So I thought it is very relevant. So I'll make a assumption that today the people who are coming in to see this talk and be a part of this talk will be from various categories. So I will not keep it very technical because police reforms as such is a big subject. There has been much said, very less done for a lot of time. So there are a lot of literature and material on this, a lot of technical jargons, laws and sections, but I will not keep it very technical. I'll keep it as less as possible. And the language also, I'll try to mix Hindi and English. जितना भी हो सकता है मैं हिंदी में करूँगा और English mix करूँगा. And also the way this entire thing about police atrocities, I think the framing would be much better, if we have a citizen's point of view. What exactly does a citizen see as atrocity? Now, in this situation, we know from 2014 onwards, we had been seeing a lot of bias in policing. We had been seeing a lot of negligence. We have been seeing a lot of political control over policing. So, in a broader context, I would even say that it is an atrocity of the justice system. Police is one part of it. Like, for example, I would start the discussion from 2018 onwards, when the activist in Bhima Koregaon case was a false case was foisted on them, and they're all taken into custody under UAPA. Now everybody knows these were the people who were standing for the voiceless. and they were all very sort of acknowledged and very, very sort of accomplished advocates, many of them. But when cases were foisted was put on them and they were taken into custody, and even bail became a big difficulty. The last being Anant Tumdeji, who was a known Dalit scholar. So it was a big sort of marker, or I should say a siren, in the whole social society setup. If this could happen to these people, then what could not happen? So I think there was a sort of indicator sent by the government. And let us also understand, this all these things are done with an intention of sending a message to everybody. Now then came the broader picture of 370, and then after Article 370, when NRC CAA protest started, we saw the way in which it was curtailed in many areas, the way in which it was brutally handled, especially in Jamia and especially in JNU. We could very clearly see what was possible in this country. After 370 abrogation, after controlling Kashmir without any resistance, I think it became a norm that police will be the main arm of, sort of quelling resistance. And then in the recent times, we saw the Delhi riots, very, very troublesome time in my life to having gone through this, because having seen this system work for some time very closely, I was always expecting this would be something they will do, and they did it. And when they did it, I, coming from bureaucracy, had all the confidence in bureaucracy that there will be some resistance and response from bureaucracy, but I was completely disappointed to the core. I was in Delhi working with Harsh Mandarji and group, where I had a very, very straightforward, very close look at what was happening at that time. I could only say that I was appalled, and after which I knew that what the response, because it was the first time the civil society came out with a very solid resistance, and I knew what administration would be doing when this entire thing was over. And exactly as I thought, they went on their business, targeting a particular community, targeting the Muslims, and then targeting the youngsters, and then targeting women, so that a lesson is taught for the coming days. That will be the approach generally an administration takes, and I think they have taken this. Now we have been seeing the arrests which are going on. I can't explain in words how it, with what impunity it has been done. Yesterday, as we are, yesterday also Safur's bail got rejected, and with if at all somebody had a case for a bail, that would have been it. But the way in which, in a frivolous way in which the court had rejected the bail, uh, that is why I say that it is a brutality of the justice system. It is along with police, there is a huge structure which aids and sort of abets the system, and I think we should see it in this context. But for our discussion, we will still try to keep it in the level of police, because they are the cutting edge on how services are rendered in the society. So we will try to keep it at that level. So I would just give this opening remarks for 15 minutes so that we will keep it as interactive as possible. And especially, I just want to say that to this discussion, I can, since I had managed the same system from the other side, I will try to add my experience so that that gives a perspective to how things actually work. So I will try to sort of explain to you the general idea of how policing works, how a DM and an SP and the administration thinks about certain things, and what exactly will be their approach on certain things. So to start with, we'll have to understand police is the subject of police belongs to state. In the constitution, it is on the in the seventh schedule. It is a state subject. So state actually controls the way in which the police functions. So that is why you could see in Bhima Koregaon case, once the government changed in Maharashtra, the central government took up the case to NIA. Until then, Maharashtra police was doing a great job of targeting people and foisting the case as they wanted. But the moment the government changed, they took it off. So these are all indications on when government goes with an agenda of doing some things. So it's basically the state government which controls. And off late, and also from the it's not a new thing for police. It's a colonial system, and police have always been the weapon of the administration. It has been always politically controlled to a huge extent. And the way in which the officials and the bureaucracy functions inside police is also vastly controlled by politics. Suppose in a district, the MLAs and the MPs might agree for a district collector of somebody else's choice, maybe the chief minister's choice, but they will never agree to a police SHO who is not from his choice. Even अगर DM को CM साहब अगर अपॉइंट करेंगे तो वो एक्सेप्ट कर लेंगे, मगर एक SHO को ऐसे एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेंगे, क्योंकि SHO बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है उनके लिए. The SHO actually has to be in the good books of the MLA and AP. This is the practicality. There are a lot of caste equations inside a district. There are a lot of things that the SHO will have to comply. He will, in many cases, I have seen that in very good sync with the local politician. तो उसके हिसाब से जो भी पॉलिटिक्स का जो बायस होता है वो ऑटोमेटिकली SHO से अपने नीचे जो भी पुलिस कांस्टेबलरी होता है उसके साथ ऑटोमेटिकली बन जाता है. तो this is largely controlled by the postings. Postings in government happens for all a practical purpose politically. It doesn't happen through any sort of performance. और अगर कोई अच्छा, जो ऐसे हम देखते हैं टीवी सिनेमास में, जैसे डिफिकल्ट डिस्ट्रिक्ट में एक अच्छा ऑफिसर को कोई नहीं भेजता है. डिफिकल्ट डिस्ट्रिक्ट में वो जो MLA और पॉलिटिशियन जिसको जैसे पुलिस ऑफिसर चाहिए वैसे भेजेंगे, वैसे ही CM भेजेंगे. Or you could also see in states like UP and also in Karnataka, the caste equation plays a huge role. अगर ये गवर्नमेंट आएगा, एक कास्ट को बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पोजीशंस मिलेगा, और दूसरा गवर्नमेंट आएगा, दूसरा कास्ट को मिलेगा. तो पुलिस के अंदर ये जो बायस है वो ऑटोमेटिकली ड्रिवन है इस सिस्टम से. तो जब वो SHO आएगा, एक MLA का जो चॉइस का SHO वो जहां पुलिस स्टेशन में आएगा, तो उसका कॉन्टेक्ट कैसे रहेगा? दिस इज पॉइंट नंबर 1. Secondly, we have to understand our entire policing, 86% is constabulary. First of all, we'll have to also understand we are very, very understaffed. We are around 180 police per 1 lakh, where 1 lakh people. The norm is around 240. So, बहुत understaffed है, and the 86% of our police force is constabulary. जो 10th पास से कांस्टेबल होते हैं. और दूसरे एक चीज जो होता है, कांस्टेबलरी में प्रमोशंस नहीं है, एक ही प्रमोशन ज्यादातर होता है, एक कांस्टेबल से हेड कांस्टेबल बनेगा. तो उसके जो ड्यूटी में उसका कोई इंसेंटिव ही नहीं है, दैट नो इफ आई परफॉर्म वेल, if I do well, if I get good name, I will get promotions. That kind of incentives are not there inside this constabulary. तो constabulary का क्या होता है, when he is overworked and understaffed, एक थाना में उस थाने के अंदर जो भी वैल्यू सिस्टम्स होता है उसको कैप्चर कर लेता है, वैल्यू कैप्चरिंग हो जाता है. तो इसलिए अगर कोई इस्लामाफोबिक कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी में रहेंगे, पुलिस का भी एटीट्यूड ऐसे ही बन जाता है. और अगर कोई कास्टिस्ट इक्वेशंस में रहेंगे, पुलिस का एटीट्यूड ऐसे ही बन जाता है, इंट्रिंसिकली बन जाता है. मगर ज्यादातर बाहर नहीं दिखाते हैं, मगर इंट्रिंसिकली है वो, उसको हम मना नहीं कर सकते. दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. उनका रिक्रूटमेंट भी इतना गंदा है, इट इज सो पॉलिटिकली डन दैट many people go into the system without that filter being done. Having said this, I will also say the police system is a very cohesive force. अगर जिले में जो डीएम होता है, जो सेंट्रल ऑफिसर, और एसपी जो होते हैं, तो एसएसपी बोलते हैं कहीं पे भी, उनको यूपी जैसे स्टेट्स में कप्तान साहब बोलते हैं, दे कॉल देम कप्तान साहब. अगर कप्तान साहब जो भी उनका उनका जो इंटेंशंस रहेगा, उनका जो कॉन्डक्ट रहेगा, और वो I have seen in my experience, it also trickles down to the whole force. For example, in a district that I worked, I could see that the SP and the DC could make a huge difference to the conduct of the police. अगर SP public oriented रहेगा, तो you can see in a matter of 6 months or 7 months the entire force ऐसे public oriented रहेगा. वो जो पुलिस स्टेशन के अंदर पब्लिक का बहुत ये करेंगे. मगर अगर एसपी ही और या जो हायर ऑफिसर वही if he is not good, then that will reflect very badly onto the police. So my one sort of understanding is, when we talk about policing, we should always talk about these higher officers who are in the rank of controlling the lower staff, because these higher officers, they come into the system as a form of the system. When the exams they pass, they are tested in all levels for the understanding of the constitution, for the spirit in which they are coming into the bureaucracy, and I think everything flows from their instructions to the lower staff. अगर एसपी बोलेंगे और एसपी का जो इंटेंशन रहेगा, नहीं आज तो इनको ये जो प्रोटेस्टर्स है इनको उठाना है, कैसे भी उठाना है, मारो पीटो कुछ भी करो, he will not tell it to every constable, but if that is his intention, that will automatically boil down to the police. अगर टॉप पुलिस ऑफिसर ऐसे रहेंगे, नो पब्लिक को वी शुड नॉट डू इट, वी शुड गो बाय द लॉ, वी शुड अपहोल्ड लॉ, पीस एंड ऑर्डर, देन entire force will behave. So I have seen the same force changing from one position to another position based on who controls it. अगर एसपी और एसएसपी politically controlled होंगे तो ये पक्का ऐसे ही रहेगा. Very good example is यूपी. जब यूपी में आई थिंक द एंटायर सेकेंड वो जो फायरिंग हुआ था, उसके पहले सीएम साहब ने यूपी में he had called every top official in a conference, in a video conference, and there was instruction given to them to go ahead, and that instruction percolated, and that is why you would see within 2 or 3 days so much of firing happened and so many people died in one state. तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा इंसिडेंट और एक बहुत बड़ा एग्जाम्पल है how the same police can be tolerant under different conditions and different sort of SPs, but at the same time उनका भी एक intrinsic value systems रहता है, and that will be shown when you suppose if they feel that इनको ऐसे ही करना है, अगर चांस मिलेगा तो कर लेंगे. तो I want to be clear on this. So it is not the lower constabulary which is very important when we think about reforms, when we think about who is responsible. I think it is the SP and higher officers who have the responsibility of putting the force to order. So let me be very clear on this aspect. So again, when we try to talk about what are the urgent reforms required in policing, it is not a new subject. It has been there for a long time. There have been police commissions, there have been separate commissions, Ribeiro Commission, there have been many commissions. There has been interventions from the Supreme Court also on certain sort of reforms to be done in the policing. But unfortunately, many things have not taken up because of various sort of vested interest, I should say, which are inside policing. Because if police is lost, if force is lost, the vested interest cannot remain. So they will not carry out these reforms in the true spirit as much as possible. That is their basic thing. तो अगर दो एरिया में सेलेक्ट करूं बहुत इंपॉर्टेंटली अभी जो चाहिए हमको, एक है पब्लिक अकाउंटेबिलिटी. अभी एक पुलिस वाला कुछ भी करेगा, he is not accountable to anybody. In fact, there is a famous case called Prakash Singh case, under which the Supreme Court had instructed around 7 major reforms inside police, and it was mandated for them to do it and file an affidavit. The states have been dithering for a long time, and finally नाम के वास्ते कुछ तो करके दे दिए. तो पहला मेजर इंस्ट्रक्शन जो उसमें दिए थे, that you have to make a state security commission which will prevent police from political influence. Again, Supreme Court worded in such a broad way. Many states have done it, but none of the states is functional. They also wanted to make a police establishment, structure by which um, the entire postings of the lower constabulary will be done, and also recommendation for the higher policing will also be done. तो वो उसका भी कुछ नहीं हुआ, अगर कोई भी स्टेट में वो फंक्शनल नहीं है. दूसरे एक पुलिस कंप्लेंट्स अथॉरिटी बोल के एक इंस्टीट्यूशन था. उसके अंदर वी कैन रिसीव कंप्लेंट्स फ्रॉम पब्लिक अबाउट पुलिस एट्रोसिटीज और एक्सेसेस, बट इंटरेस्टिंगली उसका जो ऑफिशियल्स है, इट वाज अगेन डीएम एंड जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट में एक साथ काम करते हैं जो ऑफिशियल्स वही हैं. तो पुलिस और डिस्ट्रिक्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में ऐसे नहीं होगा जीएम जाके एसपी के ऊपर कंप्लेंट लिखेगा और एसपी जाके लिए, वैसे फंक्शन नहीं होगा वो. तो इसलिए जो भी कंप्लेंट्स आएगा, पब्लिक को भी पता है इसमें कुछ नहीं होगा, इसमें कुछ एक्शन नहीं लेंगे, तो उसका जो पुलिस कंप्लेंट्स अथॉरिटी का जो भी है वो भी आई थिंक इट इज खत्म, कोई कहाँ पे भी नहीं हो रहा है. तो इसलिए पब्लिक अकाउंटेबिलिटी इन स्पाइट ऑफ द सुप्रीम कोर्ट जो इंटरवेंशन नहीं है. मगर व्हाट पब्लिक अकाउंटेबिलिटी दैट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इज मच समथिंग मच हायर. आई वुड नॉट tell what will be right. I think we will all have to discuss and debate on these matters, but we need a forum by which police can be held accountable. A common man, if today something has happened to me, there should be a forum for me to go and launch a complaint and get redressal. That is something very important. Second area is the very important area of the power to arrest. अगर पुलिस के हाथ से ये जो पावर निकल जाएगा तो पुलिस नहीं रहेंगे. जो वो अरेस्ट का जो पावर है, दैट पावर इज व्हाट एक्चुअली मेक्स देम वेरी वेरी स्ट्रांग. तो जो द पावर टू अरेस्ट, उसके लिए हमको थोड़ा रिफॉर्म्स लेना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि द वे इन विच इट इज वर्डेड इनसाइड सीआरपीसी is very broad and vague. It can be interpreted in any ways. It will be funny if I say how when a policeman can arrest, there are some seven areas where he can arrest. The wordings are like, if he is reasonably doubtful or a reasonable complaint is given, something like that, where a policeman can anyway use that in whatever way to arrest. Second, there is a section called 151 CRPC where he can arrest preventively. If he feels that a cognizable offense is going to be conducted, he can arrest. Of course, even for the arrestee, there are a lot of preventions given even in the Constitution. The Article 22 of the Constitution talks about what are the rights of a person who gets arrested. When after he gets arrested in 24 hours, he has to be presented to a magistrate. He has the right to be informed of the charges. He has a right for to consult a lawyer, and other things are there. But still, this power to arrest is something which is used very arbitrarily in our cases. And now with all the local preventive laws like UAPA and TADA and other things, police have a free hand of arresting without any norms, without any justification. So this has become the biggest harasser today. If you or me, if police wants to harass you or me, the only thing they will do is they'll come, they will give some false pretense, and they will say we will arrest you. And because of that fear, a lot of people succumb to this thing, and this arrest is used as a tool to extract money and corruption and everything. Even many commissions have said that the 60% of the arrests which happen in this country are actually unnecessary, and it is done with a sort of vested interest. So इसलिए इस power of arrest को हमको डीपली स्टडी करना पड़ेगा, और हमको बहुत क्लियरली इसको ड्राफ्ट करना पड़ेगा. तो देर आर अदर एरियाज ऑफ पुलिस रिफॉर्म्स लाइक देयर ओन ड्यूटी कंडीशंस, the recruitment process, the training. I'm not going to go into all of these things. I just want to keep it very simple so that uh, I basically think these are the two broad areas which is going to create a huge difference. If at all we are able to create a demand for very pointed requests, then I think something will be done. So one, we need an organization for public accountability of police activities, which will be functional, which will be self-driven, which will be approachable, which will be just, which will be out of bias. Secondly, we will need the power of arrest to be rewritten and be exercised only at the worst conditions where it is absolutely essential. These are the two areas. So I'll just again tell or reiterate the important points that I said, that we have to see this whole thing as the brutality of a justice system. Police works in a different way. There's no point in pointing a finger at a constable who's a very low salaried employee of the organization. We have to point fingers at the higher bureaucracy who has the responsibility. अगर जो नीचे जो वो एक कांस्टेबल रहता है, उसको उसके ऊपर हमको फिंगर दिखा के कुछ we cannot get anything out of it. So we have to make the higher officer responsible and be be responsible for the oath he has taken on the constitution. Or third cheese, jo दो areas that I think is very important, which has to be focused, is public accountability. We need an organization on that. And secondly, the power to arrest is something which we'll have to see, which we'll have to work upon. Again, I would like to, in the course of our discussion, we will talk about much about what has happened to the student organizations, why they are going behind, various other organizations, what is their intentions. So I will leave it at that. I will leave it to Sai to continue with the interaction.
Hi, sir. That was a nice introduction. Like you also set the frame for the next part, where you were telling why they are targeting student organizations, and they were categorically clear, and it was there. I mean, on 7th of March, on 8th of March, Rajasthan Patrika carried this news, where they said that it was ISA, PFI, and Pinjra Tod who orchestrated this whole communal rights.
Yeah.
And on 11th, Monica Arora, through group of intellectuals and academicians, they go and give a petition to the Minister of Home, Kishan Reddy, saying that we have a details of everyone, and if you go into the details, it says basically everyone, students, teachers, academicians. I mean, everyone under the sun, with few organizations named again Pinjra Tod, Aisha. And when Delhi police claims that they start the investigation in the month of April, when the lockdown starts, and they start arresting. I remember Safura was picked up at around 4 o'clock in the morning in the case related to not the FIR 59, which is a UAPA one, but other case. And she was given bail the next day itself. And she was re-arrested.
Yeah.
She was re-arrested again.
Yeah.
And it became a pattern later on. I mean, in the pandemic also, the Delhi police did not leave the students, but on the other hand, there were so many people who got bail who were accused in the same case. Like Manish Arora is one person, I can remember his name. He was arrested under Arms Act, but he was given a bail saying कि नहीं इसको कोविड हो सकता है, तो हम छोड़ देते हैं. और आज मैं खबर पढ़ रहा था, इसके बाद मैं छोड़ दूंगा आपको इस पे बताने के लिए. दिल्ली पुलिस एक हियरिंग में इसीलिए नहीं गया, कहते हुए कि स्पेशल ब्रांच के लोगों को कोविड हो गया है, 2 लोगों को, तो सारा स्पेशल ब्रांच का टीम जो है वो होम क्वारंटाइन में है. तो वो होम क्वारंटाइन में रहते हुए भी स्टूडेंट्स को परेशान करना नहीं छोड़े. वो बोले कि ऑनलाइन आ जाएंगे और कोर्ट में बयान देंगे. तो और यहीं पे मेरा सवाल आता है कि जो आईएएस ऑफिसर, जो आईपीएस ऑफिसर, जैसे कि मैं देवेंद्र, उनका नाम मैं भूल रहा हूँ, जो कपिल मिश्रा के बगल में खड़े थे, डीसीपी, उनके बगल में बेसिकली कपिल मिश्रा ने हेट स्पीच दिया. और मजेदार बात यह है कि मार्क जुकनबर्ग अपने फेसबुक एम्प्लॉय से जब बात कर रहा था और उसने ये बात बोला कि there was a person, he did not name Kapil Mishra, he said, it was indicative, he said that he stood beside a police officer and gave a hate speech. We had to remove it from our page because it would have created violence. I mean, it was incitement. मार्क जुकरबर्ग को लग रहा था कि इट वाज इंसाइटमेंट, बट यहाँ पे हमारे ऑफिसर्स को जो बगल में खड़े थे उनको कभी नहीं लगा, उन पे ना
DCP North East. DCP North East.
नॉर्थ ईस्ट। तो ये सिचुएशन है, ये अकाउंटेबिलिटी और ये पूरे अरेस्ट के पीछे क्या लगता है आपको और वजह क्या है, इस पे आप थोड़ा बताइए।
साई, ये मेरा पहले से मैं यही बात कर, आई हैव ऑलवेज स्पोकन दिस। In fact, a day before yesterday, I was watching Fox News in the US. The same narrative, they say this whole Black Lives Matter movement started with the universities. There were students who were poisonous, there were lecturers, and there were, professors who started this poison, who are, are responsible for this whole protest, which is now, gone all over the world. So the story is the same. Sai, everywhere. These authoritarian regimes, their enemy number one is university. To be mark it from me, they don't like universities, they don't like students, because that is where dissent comes from. When you guys ask questions, they don't like being asked questions. See, there's a difference between a dictator and an authoritarian regime. A dictator only wants a country, he should be the king, that's all he wants. But an authoritarian regime wants everybody to think like them. They will not stay silent until everybody thinks like them. They will not accept dissent. So if they have so much of hate for the students, if they have so much of hate for dissent, the only way it will come out is the way that they know. And arrest before trial is their way of punishment. Here administration doesn't believe in sort of putting a case on you and then proving the case and getting you the punishment. They don't believe that. They know it will not happen because it is all false cases. 101% is false cases. They know it is not going to survive. They only know until that stage we have to keep this person inside jail. That is what is the punishment. So it empowers them to sort of punish you even before a crime is committed. That is the situation of the justice system as of now. That is why you will see police will have 3-4 charges lined up. They will not file every charge sheet at the same time. Suppose you get bail, they will give another charge sheet, they will give another FIR, show another FIR and take custody. They will not ask custody simultaneously. They will try to keep you in the jail as much as possible before that trial stage comes. That they think is a deterrent. But unfortunately, I think in the student community, this is not going to work. This might work with some, political people, but not with the student community, because the more you are going to sort of stifle a youngster, there are 10 more people going to come again. So I think, that is the reason why they will do it. Now, I think, in this Delhi thing, I am also seeing they are going behind women very clearly. They are going behind women because they were a big force in the protest, and the government did not know how to react because they were peacefully asking for their rights, and they were they couldn't just use the same lathi, the colonial weapon on them. So now they don't want this newly found voice of the women to come out. So that is why they are going behind women organizations very strongly. And Safura, who is pregnant and who is in the situation of this COVID, who else would be deserving a bail? And and she has been denied bail, saying that there is prima facie evidence that she conspired to do a road blockade. The jokes are becoming more and more serious in this country, and that is the simple reason. And to all our friends who are watching this, I think many of us will go. They will use this weapon on many of us, but I think this is the time for us to stand and protect this constitution, as people are doing worldwide. Now US has woken up. Now there are a lot of countries which have to wake up, because we are in the clutches of this authoritarian system. So we have to this totalitarian structure should be taken out, that we need to come in and we need to take up the fight.
Uh, yeah, I mean every regime hates students. I remember
Enemy number one. Enemy number one.
I remember during Vietnam War when US was involved, it was the university students and professors who found the larger chunk who resisted and participated in the anti-war protest. So, sir, I would ask one more question, and I think after that we can call it a break for today for this one. And after that, you can also place your ending remarks. Uh, what troubles students a lot, I mean others, is forget about TK. Students are public enemy number one. We have seen how
Not
sedition,
public enemy
UAPA,
number one.
police,
Totalitarian regimes enemy number one.
yeah. But unfortunately, during this whole lockdown period, we have seen how police has worked against, I mean, beating up workers, beating up women, beating up even doctors, nurses. So, in the sense, whenever given an opportunity where curfew लगा देना है, नहीं जाने देना है किसी को, the only answer that they know is to take a lathi and beat up people. I mean, हो सकता है कि वर्कर घर पे नहीं रह पाया, वो भूख के मारे घर जा रहा है, सरकार ने उनके लिए कोई व्यवस्था नहीं किया. अब पुलिस से ये उम्मीद नहीं कर सकते कि आप जाके छोड़िए, बट जगह जगह पे उनसे मुर्गी बनवाया. दे डिड ऑल द स्टफ दैट normally teachers used to do with students in school. How do you see, I mean, do you think there is a consciousness about this police state? Like, I come from a state, Telangana, where our police believes they are military. So we have cameras, we have drones, we have facial recognition, we have, automatic rifles with the police. So slowly the police is being militarized, so in a very different sense. And the fear, like jokingly me and my friend are, mat jao abhi police tumko bahut marega. So it has become like a common sense now. And how do we see it from here? And what I mean, I mean, even the opposition has never raised any question about the police atrocities. It was people through social media by sharing videos, by speaking up. Individual constable used to get suspended. But as you said, the top level officer who was in charge of the whole district or a place never had any question raised about why are the forces behaving that way.
Yeah. You are very right. It was, the concept of police state is what something, we could feel it. People who are in this movement will feel it. But I think common people also saw what the police state was in this lockdown. We are a country where, there are so many laws and regulations, and 90% of them even officials don't know. Even the people who made those laws don't know. And within 4 hours, if you put in a lockdown and then you say this is what it is, how do you expect a vegetable vendor to understand what the government is actually asking him? So see, that requires a separate discussion on how this entire COVID situation, which is a health issue, which was converted into from a health issue to a sort of control issue. It has now become so pathetically driven to the other side. This empathy on this whole thing is lost. So what should have been dealt as a health issue, where people are explained, made understood, and given time to sort of take things, was not given at all. That is because the government was very happily doing Namaste Trump a month before, and suddenly woke up. They understood, abhi kuch karna hai, abhi kya karna hai, sabko band kar do. So this has been always the approach of the totalitarian regimes that we talk about. They don't think about the people. They know what they think will run. Okay, coming to the police, why did they act the way they did? I think it's a complete reflection of the whole policing system. That is how they deal with people who have any sort of interaction with them, who don't have the push and pulls. If you ever get accused in a police station and you see the way they deal with this, is the same thing they do. So they were given an open this thing. In fact, I don't think the law doesn't permit the police to use force until you have certain clear-cut conditions that there has to be an illegal assembly. That assembly has to be more than 5 people, and they have to resist. They have to be informed to move out, and if they don't move out, that is when police can use reasonable force on them. It's not like अगर कोई बाइक में जा रहा है, तुम लाठी तुम्हारे पीठ के पीछे हाइड करके जब वो जाएगा उसको मारो, 10 वो जब बंदा जाके उधर गिरेगा. So all these atrocious things were being committed in the name of control, and I think it's a biggest blunder, and it blew up in these migrant cases. The government was so inept. They didn't understand there was a group called migrant workers, and come what may, they are going to walk to their houses, and they thought everything could be controlled. I know a group of migrant workers who purchased a boat from Tamil Nadu and sailed all the way to Orissa. That is uh, the system in which migrant laborers work. Without understanding such things, without complete lack of understanding, how the country works. So because they have never come down and checked all these things, for them it's all emotively किसी को भड़काओ politics. That's what they completely do. So that is the reason why police went berserk, because they were given full authority. And the police officers, many of them, I know certain good officers who have really controlled, really went onto the field, managed things. But a vast majority of them let the police run the thing. They thought keeping people under control for 21 days is going to be the primary thing which is going to control COVID in this country, which was a big joke then. It is becoming a bigger joke now. And now, when we really need to sort of make people understand, we have just created panic. Today, people are not ready to believe anything. Whatever, I don't know, even if you say something, they will just say, okay, they'll have to find an alternative way to do that. So things like that. So it's a complete management from the top, and also a reflection of how actual policing is done to the poor people. Since the rich have got to see this, they are finding it very unpalatable, but this is how it has been going on for a long time. Secondly, I would also say that the only tool that we have right now in our hand is to record many atrocities or whatever. I think we should be in a position to record the evidence of that, and present it at the right occasions. I think that will slowly start controlling. Now today the whole world is burning because of a small video taken of one atrocity which happens very normally in many places. So I think we'll have to be alert as a citizen. We'll have to understand our rights also. We'll have to speak up, and we'll also have to sort of do what is in our hand to bring these things to the public discussion and forum. I think that is our responsibility.
Thank you very much, sir. One point which you made, and it made me remind, and I think with that we can end this. The top 5 authoritarians in the country, sorry, in the world. If you name them, if you list them, it will start with US, I mean America, then Brazil, then you have, I mean Boris Johnson is also there in that list, I believe. Then you have Putin, and then we have a Modi. But unfortunately, within a couple of days or 3-4 days, India is going to be in this top 5 among these 4 countries.
Yeah.
Our COVID response has been so bad. Our lockdown has been so bad that the number of cases we are adding around 10,000 cases a day now.
Yeah.
And it won't be late that we'll be increasing this number. And with the kind of news we are getting from Delhi, where people are going to the hospitals but they've been denied, there are no beds, and it's becoming very horrific. And on the other hand, now many journalists are reporting it, that now what government is doing in order to hide the data, they're not testing in areas where there is a spread. They're testing in other areas where there's not a spread. So the numbers can also be there, and the infection rate can also be low. I think we are heading for a very bad phase. And thank you very much. And I would like you to final comments, and then we'll close with that. And I'll go off screen, and you make your final comments. And there are people who are congratulating you also for giving this talk.
My final comments is very simple. India is a very, very strong country. We are a bunch of people. We are chaotic, and we are very, very, sweetly chaotic. We are very resilient. We have seen through many things, and I think we will come out of this very brightly. Chaos will again save this country. That beautiful chaos in this country, which I really love, will save this country. No dictator or authoritarian or a totalitarian who tries to make this country think alike is ever going to succeed. And I think this is a golden opportunity for all of us to wake up and take our responsibilities for the country, because today we are in this position because somebody did that work 75 years before, and it's our time now. And I think the students are leading the way. My great admiration. I hope I was a student at this phase of this history of our country. And we are all so proud of these student organizations to go ahead. And there will be sacrifices, there will be what we need to give to this country, we'll have to give. But then there is no suppressing this great country of ours. We are too many, and we are too different, and we are too loving, and with each other, and nothing can separate us. So this hate is something which we will all have to fight. I think that is the biggest virus than this COVID. That hate is something which we'll have to fight, and we'll have to end it in our time, and we should not let it pass on to our next generations. Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. Some other time we will discuss in a much broader sense.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.